As digital technology continues to grow, they have transformed the way we work, communicate, and create value. However, this transformation also raised serious concern about fairness, labor rights, and the concentration of power within large platforms. The democratization of digital technology has enabled new business models to emerge. The platform-based systems are designed to connect various groups, as not by Snick in 2017. However, they also create new risks and challenges, such as extracting value from users and shifting traditional labor norms. From the government point of view, there is growing concern about labor exploitation on digital platforms. Many individuals are performing uncompensated and invisible work because of weak regulations. In 2025, Australians spend over 6 hours online daily, showing how deeply our lives now depend on digital space. Two key issues stand out in this discussion. The first is crowdsourcing the platforms. They enable connection between creator and consumer and monetize user contribution at minimal cost. However, this leads to asymmetric benefits where platforms profit much more than their user. The second issue is data commodification. Users unknowingly generate profits for platforms simply through their online interaction and engagement. This creates a hidden form of labor that benefits corporations more than individuals. Before the Act implementation in 2030, Australia has already introduced several legislative reforms. For instance, the Fair Work Ombudsman recognized employee-like workers in digital platforms, and the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations 2023 established fair termination processes. However, despite these steps, there remains a strong need for a more comprehensive act, one that fully addresses the diverse and expanding forms of digital labor. Without this act, decision-making power over fair working conditions would stay concentrated among platform owners and corporations. The imbalance is problematic because many organizations still struggle to adapt to emerging technologies. When traditional corporate norms are applied to digital contexts, conflicts and unfair treatment often arise. Moreover, platforms do not always act in the best interest of their users or workers. For example, in 2017, Uber CEO Travis Kalanick verbally harassed a driver who raised concern about pay, a situation that revealed deeper ethical issues within digital corporations. The Act established clear responsibility and rights for both users and platforms. It enables easier identification of unfair treatment or policy breaches, a more streamlined process for dispute resolution, and introduced penalties for violation to prevent recurring offense. Overall, it addresses issues such as data misuse and unethical management, as demonstrated in Uber case. Looking ahead, the Act envisions a more equitable and transparent digital future. It recognizes diverse forms of digital labor as legitimate work, protected by clear policy measures. It calls for full disclosure of how user activity generates revenue and how algorithms influence that revenue. Ultimately, the goal is to ensure a fair and sustainable distribution of profits between digital laborers and platforms. It also aims to improve the well-being of digital workers by setting reasonable boundaries on user labor and providing stronger safeguards against exploitation.
We will now evaluate how the Act's visions has materialized in 2035 by reflecting on each policy and its impact 5 years later after the implementation. Our first policy revolves around the recognition of digital labor. As there is a lot of ambiguity regarding the term digital labor, 13% of digital platform workers did not consider themselves employed. Therefore, the purpose of this policy is to establish a formal definition of what constitutes as digital labor to ensure fair recognition and protection of digital laborers. Under this policy, the Act establishes a formal definition of what activities or who constitute as a digital laborer. Firstly, we have creators on crowdsourcing platforms. Next, we have content creators. These are individuals producing consistent digital content with a significant following relative to a platform standards. And content produced that are subject or was subjected to an outside organization's deadline or standards are considered as labor under this Act. Next, we have platform-based services. Finally, other user-generated activity may also count as digital labor. These are instances where a notable online participation or interaction generate commercial value for platforms, such as generating reviews, initiating a trend that amplifies network effects, or any participation that produce commodifiable data. Following this, the policy introduced protective measures to safeguard the workers' right and well-being. Individuals conducting digital work have the right to decline tasks or requests that impose an unrealistic timeframe for completion or fall outside standard work hours in their time zone. Full-time digital laborers can also only work a maximum of 38 hours per week, in line with Australia's Fair Work standards for traditional labor. For individuals performing digital work in addition to traditional employment, their reasonable hours will be determined based on the demands of their primary job. Finally, digital platforms are required to offer tools, resources, and support to maintain and enhance the health and well-being of their workers. This may be through a 24/7 chatbot or a free well-being app. The policy also demands algorithm transparency. Therefore, platforms must disclose their algorithmic processes that determines visibility. Now, in 2035, due to the policy, platforms have taken greater initiatives to monitor work hours and set features that discourage or prevent overworking their workers, such as mandatory rest period after a certain duration of user activity. This is a shift away from what Friedman classified as the prevalent expectation in the digital economy, where platforms rely on independent workers to cut on employee-related costs such as benefits, holidays, and even lunch break. That would be a standard of a permanent employee. We are also noticing improvements in workers' mental health as support are more accessible, enabling them to better cope with work-related stress. Thuy highlighted that these stresses include the anxiety involved in vigilantly seeking projects or ensuring payment. A new Fair Work Act also recognizes the definition of digital labor as outlined in this policy. The second policy under this act revolves around creator fund, compensation, and data dividend. This policy challenges the imbalance. Therefore, the purpose of this policy is to ensure fairer value sharing between digital platforms and users. There are two key components under this policy. First, we have the Creator Fund, which specifically refers to monetary compensations to digital creators. The second key component is data dividend. Users will receive small payments when their data or content helps train AI or similar with their consent. However, in regards to compensation, we acknowledge that financial incentives are very costly and might have a negative impact on users' intention in online participations. Therefore, this policy clearly states that compensation for digital work can be in the following form rather than monetary. Firstly, compensation can involve enhancing an individual's professional identity and helping with career progression. This could be done through offering quality training and experience. Compensation can also be meeting users' desire for recognition. According to Kohler, this could be through platform affordances such as user badges that convey expertise or status. Now, in 2035, there has been a growth in informative and valuable online content as users are more motivated and appropriately compensated for their labor in the form they prefer and desire. We are also noticing a healthier platform-worker relationship as evident in higher worker morale and more positive perception of the companies they work for.
Before this law was introduced in 2029, algorithms controlled almost everything on digital platforms like pay rates, visibility, and even who gets to work. But no one really understood how it worked. Jordan 2017 pointed out that companies like Uber use algorithms to manage people but never take responsibility when it goes wrong. Thuy et al. 2021 found that most workers kept checking their pay pages because they didn't trust the system, so this policy came in to fix that lack of trust. The goal of this law was simple: to make platforms fair and transparent. If a platform decides your pay, ranking, or job access, they have to explain why. It's all about accountability, giving users a right to understand how those invisible systems affect them. Under this law, platforms must clearly explain how they decide pay and job rankings. Workers can also ask for reasons when their pay is low or when they get rejected from a job. Independent audits check that the systems aren't biased or unfair. Basically, it makes algorithms answerable to people and not just companies. This gives people confidence that decisions about their work are fairly made and not randomly or secretly. It also forces platforms to handle data and pay systems responsibility. No more mystery rankings or sudden drops in pay with no reason, so everything has to be transparent. Now that we're in 2035, the results have been really positive. Platforms have to publish how their ranking and pay systems work, and bias complaints have dropped a lot. Workers don't stress as much about hidden rules anymore, and trust in these platforms has gone up. Some companies even started advertising their transparency as a selling point, showing that fairness can actually be a good business. Before this policy, people, especially young users, were spending way too much time online. Thuy et al. 2021 talked about how constant screen time and monitoring caused mental fatigue for online workers. And Poliki showed how so-called flexible work can hurt health over time. So this policy focuses on protecting digital well-being and building better habits daily. The main goal was to protect young users and encourage healthy digital use. It is introduced screen time limits for minors and asked platforms to design features that remind people to take breaks. It's not just about limiting time, but also about teaching balance. For example, users under 12 can only use digital platforms for up to 2 hours a day. Apps can also have features to include break reminders, rest-friendly design, and daily usage summaries. It's similar to how we regulate food or driving hours. It's about preventing overuse and keeping users safe. Now, 5 years later, we can really see the results. Digital fatigue among young users has gone down a lot. Most big platforms have built-in well-being tools like reminders and weekly screen reports. Schools even use shared dashboards with parents to help students manage screen time. Interestingly, platforms now compete to have the best digital well-being features instead of just fighting for engagement time, which shows how the culture have changed.
Moving on to the fifth policy on labor relations and social impact. To give a little bit of context, Kohler mentioned that creators generate significant value, but they receive a small reward. And additionally, Kelly said that companies are becoming networks, so fairness must be inside of these networks too. Now, without collective representation, workers remain isolated and underrepresented. So therefore, the purpose of this policy is to ensure fairness, support, and collective voice in the growing digital workforce. Now, there are 3 key ideas in this policy, and as more people are working online, new digital unions and groups can form to help each other to talk with the companies. So this would be to advocate for fair pay, protect data rights, and promote mental health and well-being. So, evaluating the policy's impact by 2035, workers can now negotiate through digital unions for fairer conditions. Online communities are more supportive and less competitive, and users have higher trust, retention, and reduced burnouts. Now, the outcome that this act has had on Australia by 2035 is that we've gone from free work to fair work. This means that online workers are now receiving fair pay, recognition, and respect. Platforms are transparent about pay, algorithms, and data use, and AI systems use data ethically and only with user consent. Growth-wise, innovation continues, but not at the expense of workers. Australia proves that a fair internet can still be a smart one, and as Kelly's mentioned before, networks get stronger when value is shared and not hoarded. So this act that was established in 2030 has transformed Australia's online economy in the way that digital jobs are now seen as stable careers, with income equality improving, and Australia has become a role model for other countries to copy for fair digital labor laws. Some takeaways that we've had from this act include how digital work is real work, and this means that every post, every click, every data point, it all counts as work now, and laws must be evolving quickly to match these new technologies. Additionally, Paul Lickey mentioned that unregulated flexibility can harm workers. Kohler said that companies profit from other people's unpaid work, and Kelly mentioned that connection is the future, but it must be fair. Looking forward, a good digital future protects people while encouraging innovation. And as we've mentioned, every post, click, and data point now counts as meaningful labor. By 2035, recognizing online work as real work has made the internet safer, fairer, and more creative. And lastly, platforms have proved that they can still grow while sharing value with the users. In conclusion, the Digital Labor Act shows that technology and fairness don't have to compete. And by recognizing online work as real work, Australia has built a digital economy that values people as much as innovation.